Welcome back, everyone, to another deep dive. We've got a fascinating topic for you today.
Yeah, this one is a lot of fun.
We're going to be talking about Claudio's channel
Mm-hmm.
and the SPL Goldmike 9844 preamp.
You know, this is something I've been seeing more and more lately.
Yeah.
This interest in bringing that sort of classic analog sound into modern music.
Yeah, it's really cool. And I've been noticing it a lot, too, and we've got a whole bunch of material about it.
Oh, yeah.
Articles, interviews, all about how Claudio's been using this Goldmike.
Right.
And, at first I was thinking, why is this one piece of gear such a big deal?
Yeah, I can see that.
But then I started reading through all this stuff, and it's clear that it's more than just a preamp.
Oh, definitely.
It's like a sonic time machine.
It really is. Like, it takes you right back to those amazing recording studios from, like, the 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
But the cool thing is that it's also pushing the music forward, too.
Yeah, and it's been really interesting because I've been seeing this preamp being talked about in a lot of different genres.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But especially Synthwave and Retrowave.
Definitely. Those genres really draw inspiration from the sounds of that era.
Yeah, so for anyone listening who maybe isn't familiar with all the technical details,
Right.
can you break down what makes this SPL Goldmike so unique?
Yeah, totally. So at its heart, it's a really high-end dual-channel preamplifier.
Okay.
But what makes it special is the way it's designed.
How does it
So it
mean?
got this dual-stage tube design, and it uses these 12 AX7 tubes.
Oh, wow. So that's where that classic sound comes from.
Yeah, exactly. These tubes are famous for creating this rich, harmonically complex sound.
I see.
And, a lot of people associate that with recordings from the 70s and 80s.
Yeah, like when you hear those old synths and drum tracks, they have this warmth.
Absolutely, like this almost glowing quality to the sound.
Totally. And so it's using those old school tubes, but it's also modern equipment.
Right.
Is that where the magic happens, like the blend of old and new?
That's a big part of it. But what's really interesting is how Claudio takes that inherent warmth from the Goldmike and he combines it with digital audio workstations.
Really bridging the gap between the two.
Exactly. So he's getting the best of both worlds.
I've read a lot about one feature in particular
Yeah.
that seems to get everyone really excited.
I bet I know what you're going to say.
I think so too.
Flair.
Flair, yes. Can you tell me more about that?
Of course. So Flair is this really unique function that boosts those high frequencies.
Okay.
But here's the thing. It does it without creating that harshness that you often get with digital processing.
So instead of getting that brittle digital high end, it's giving you that airy quality.
You got it. It's like adding the subtle sheen to the sound.
It's like polishing a gem to make it sparkle.
That's a great way to put it.
So this is huge for genres like Synthwave, where they use so many synthesizers.
Right. Because synths can sometimes sound overly bright or lack definition.
Yeah.
So the Goldmike and Flair let you add detail and clarity.
Without making it sound harsh or tiring to listen to.
Exactly.
Wow, I am starting to see why everyone is so into this.
It's pretty incredible technology.
Yeah, but let's shift gears a bit and talk about Claudio himself.
Sure.
So what can you tell me about his approach to music and how that connects with the Goldmike?
Well, one thing that's really impressive is his deep understanding of both analog and digital production.
Oh, interesting.
Like, he's not just throwing a vintage preamp on everything.
Right?
He's really intentional and thoughtful about how he uses it to create a specific sound.
Yeah, I could hear that in his music.
It's like he's blending the character of the Goldmike with all these modern production tools.
Yeah, to make this sound that's both nostalgic but also new.
That's it. It's like he's taking those classic sounds and making them relevant for today.
Yeah, and I've heard some of his tracks, and they have this really unmistakable warmth and depth.
For sure. And he doesn't just stick to synthwave.
Oh, yeah, that's right. He does retro EDM, too.
Exactly. Another genre that pulls a lot from 80s music.
So does he use the Goldmike for his EDM stuff, too?
Absolutely. He uses it to create this fuller, more immersive sound.
And I bet Flair plays a role here, too.
You bet. Think about those classic 80s synth lines that were so big in electronic music.
Oh, yeah.
With Flair, he can give his synths that same vibrant, crystalline presence.
But without them taking over the whole mix.
Right. It's all about balance.
Yeah, finding that sweet spot between the rhythm and the melody.
Exactly.
It's really amazing to think that one piece of equipment can have such a big impact.
Yeah, it's not just about the tech specs.
It's about how the artist uses it.
It's about that artistic vision and knowing how to use your tools to create something unique.
And that's what makes this deep dive so fascinating.
Totally agree.
It's not just about the Goldmike itself, but about how a skilled artist like Claudio can use it to make something special.
Yeah, it's about the intersection of technology and creativity.
Exactly. You know, it's funny when I think about this Goldmike and everything we've been reading about it.
Yeah.
It makes me wonder what else this thing can do.
Hmm.
Like, are there any hidden sonic treasures in there?
Haha. Well, I think Claudio's found a few.
Yeah, because I was reading that he doesn't just use it on synths.
Right, he uses it on all sorts of instruments.
Yeah, and I was curious about that.
Yeah.
Like, how does that work?
So, you know, when we talk about analog warmth,
Mm-hmm.
we often think of those big, expansive soundscapes.
Yeah.
But it can be used in more subtle ways, too.
Oh, yeah.
Like Claudio uses the Goldmike to add depth to bass lines.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because a lot of Synthwave and Retrowave has those really deep bass lines.
Exactly. It's like the foundation of the music.
Yeah. And so by running the bass through the Goldmike,
He can really boost those low frequencies.
so it gives it more of a presence.
Totally. It's like you can feel it.
Yeah.
You know, it's not just something you hear.
It's physical.
Exactly. And what else did you read about?
I saw something about drums
Oh, yeah.
and even vocals.
So with drums, he uses it to add punch and impact.
Really?
Yeah, think about those classic 80s drum sounds.
Yeah.
They had this tight, snappy quality.
Which is hard to replicate with digital drums.
Exactly. So the Goldmike helps him capture that.
Huh. That's really interesting.
And it gives his tracks that authentic retro vibe.
Now, vocals, I was really curious about that.
Yeah, it's not super common.
Because you wouldn't think of using a preamp designed for instruments on vocals.
Right, but that's kind of Claudio's thing.
Yeah, he likes to experiment.
Exactly. He's not afraid to push the boundaries.
So what does he do with vocals?
He'll sometimes use it to add warmth and texture,
Okay.
especially for backing vocals or vocal samples.
Interesting. So he's really using this Goldmike on everything.
It seems like it.
It's like this secret.
Yeah, like he's got this sonic palette and the Goldmike is his brush.
I like that analogy.
Yeah.
But it's funny because even though he uses it on so many different things,
Yeah.
it never feels out of place.
Right. It's like it ties everything together. It adds this sonic glue.
And you know what, we've been talking a lot about Flair,
We have.
but I think it's time we go deeper.
I agree.
Like, how is Claudio actually using this Flair function in his music?
So we've talked about it in a general sense.
Yeah.
But it's not just a one-size-fits-all kind of thing.
Oh,
He
okay.
uses it in very specific and subtle ways.
Okay, so tell me how.
Well, for example, when he's working on those synth arpeggios,
Which are so iconic in Synthwave.
right, he'll use Flair to boost those high frequencies,
Okay.
to give them this ethereal, almost otherworldly feel.
So it's not about making things louder?
No, it's about adding that shimmer and airiness.
That makes certain parts stand out.
You got it. And it's that attention to detail
Yeah.
that really makes his music special.
Yeah, like he knows when to use Flair and when not to.
It's all about finding that balance.
You know what this is really making me think about?
What's that?
It's not just about having the fanciest gear
No.
or knowing the latest software.
Right.
It's about having that artistic vision
Yeah.
and knowing how to use your tools.
Exactly. And Claudio's a perfect example of that.
He really is. And, you know, I think this whole idea of analog warmth,
Mm-hmm.
it's not just limited to Claudio.
Right.
Like, there's this whole movement of producers rediscovering this stuff.
Yeah, it's like they're finding this magic in these old pieces of gear.
That's like there's an appreciation for the imperfections.
The character that you just don't get with digital.
Yeah, and I think that brings us to something really interesting.
Oh, yeah.
So you mentioned how analog warmth adds a human element to the music.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I was curious how that translates to the listener.
Well, think about listening to a track that's been completely digitally produced.
Okay.
It might sound perfect,
Yeah.
but sometimes it can feel a little flat.
Yeah, like it's missing something.
Right. It's like the difference between looking at a picture of a place.
And actually being there.
Exactly. You're not getting the full experience
So analog is about adding those little textures and imperfections.
that make the music come alive.
Yeah. Make it feel more real.
Absolutely. And that's where those tubes and circuits come in.
Yeah.
They add a layer of complexity.
That you just can't get with software.
It's like adding a little spice to your food.
You know, it doesn't change the main ingredients.
But it makes it more flavorful.
Exactly.
And so with the Goldmike, Claudio's using that to evoke certain feelings.
Yeah, like a sense of nostalgia.
Yeah, like you're listening to the soundtrack of a memory.
Even if you haven't lived it yet.
It's amazing how sound can be so powerful.
It really is.
And this is making me think about technology and music in a whole new way.
How so?
Like, it's not just about having the latest and greatest.
Right.
It's about knowing how to use it to connect with people.
To make them feel something.
Yeah. And Claudio is a great example of that.
He's using those tools to create something that's both innovative and emotional.
I totally agree.
And you know what's exciting is that this is just one example.
Yeah.
There's a whole world of analog gear out there.
Waiting to be rediscovered.
Exactly.
Mhm.
And I think we're just scratching the surface.
Yeah, it makes me wonder what other sonic gems are out there.
And how are other artists using them?
Yeah, are they using them to take us to different times and places with their music? Maybe we'll have to do another deep dive to find out.
Haha. I like that idea.
Yeah.
But for now, let's wrap up our deep dive on Claudio and the Goldmike.
Okay.
It's amazing, isn't it?
What is?
How this one piece of gear,
The Goldmike?
yeah, it's kind of become a symbol for something much bigger.
I think you're right. It represents this whole trend we're seeing in music.
Yeah, that pull between vintage analog sound and modern digital production.
Exactly, like which one is better.
Right. But Claudio's shown us that it doesn't have to be a competition.
Yeah, he's found a way to make them work together.
Yeah, to create something really unique
It's about finding that balance.
between the warmth of analog and the precision of digital.
And when you find that sweet spot,
Magic happens.
I remember reading an article that said Claudio's use of Flair was like adding magic to the music.
I saw that too. And you know what? As corny as that sounds,
Oh.
it's actually pretty accurate.
It really is. There's
Yeah.
just something about that shimmer, that extra sparkle,
It elevates the music.
without being over the top.
But it's not just about the individual effects.
It's about the big picture.
Yeah, it's about how he combines everything to make this whole sonic experience,
It's like he's a sculptor
shaping and molding the sound.
until he gets it just right.
And you can hear that in his music.
That attention to detail.
It's in the richness, the depth.
The way he uses these subtle little sounds to make you feel a certain way.
And I think what's really interesting
What is it?
is that he's not stuck in the past.
Right.
He's not just trying to recreate those old sounds.
He's reinterpreting them.
Yeah, like he's taking those classic sounds and making them new again.
Exactly. It's both nostalgic and forward-thinking.
So for anyone listening who's feeling inspired,
Yeah.
who wants to try out this analog warmth,
Where should they start?
well, first of all, definitely check out Claudio's channel.
He's really open about sharing his process.
Yeah, he talks a lot about how he uses the Goldmike and other gear.
So yeah, go check that out.
But also, don't be afraid to experiment,
There's so much cool gear out there.
both old and new.
You could start with a preamp or a compressor.
Just one piece to see how it changes your sound.
The important thing is to be curious.
Have fun with it.
Yeah, don't be afraid to try new things.
Break the rules.
Yeah.
See what happens when you combine analog and digital.
Might discover something amazing.
Maybe you'll find your own sonic signature.
That would be awesome.
Well, I think that's a great place to wrap things up.
Yeah, it's been a great discussion.
The world of music production is always changing.
There's always something new to learn.
New sounds, new techniques.
New ways to blend the old and the new.
So keep exploring, keep creating,
Yeah.
and never stop pushing the boundaries of sound.
Maybe we'll do a deep dive on your music someday.
Haha, I'd love that. Thanks for joining me on this sonic adventure.
It's been fun.
And until next time, keep experimenting and making amazing music.